Do we need a revolution? Critics of Marxism argue that a complete overthrow of the system is inevitably bloody, leads to dictatorship, and is ultimately unnecessary. Reformist commentators like Paul Mason, Thomas Piketty, and Owen Jones say that revolution can be avoided by taxing the rich and redistributing their wealth. But the rich are very good at exploiting legal loopholes to protect their interests, and can deliberately sabotage the economy by refusing to invest. Some reformists believe we can peacefully transition to a post-capitalist society by electing politicians committed to social justice, and by using new technologies to alleviate hunger and poverty. But we already have the means to feed, house and clothe every human being on Earth. The problem is that these means lie in the hands of a ruling capitalist elite committed to nothing but the production of profit. Rather than taxing them, why not take their uninvested wealth, the unpaid wages of the working class, and put it to good use? The truth is that no ruling class in history has ever given up its money or power willingly, and there is no reason to suspect things are any different today. The so-called democratic parliamentary system the bourgeois celebrate was not gifted by the monarchy and aristocrats, but was hard-won through revolutions in Europe and America. During the boom of production that followed the Second World War, capitalism staved off social unrest from a powerful and militarily experienced working class with reforms like higher wages, state healthcare, unemployment and housing benefits. But this couldn't last. As soon as the system went into crisis, the bosses and bourgeois politicians began to take these reforms away. Now, Marxists are not opposed to reforms. We fight for them to improve the lives of workers, to give us a sense of our own strength, and to bring the working class closer to revolutionary conclusions. However, we recognise that reforms are based on the capitalist system, and thus depend on growth and prosperity that cannot go on forever. As Marx explains, overproduction eventually causes profits to decline, because the workers produce more goods than the market can absorb. And this forces the capitalists to squeeze the working class to protect their interests. The problem is not ideological, it's economic. Since 2008, capitalism in most parts of the world has entered into a state of terminal decline, savaging public services through austerity and causing the standard of life for working people to plummet. Anti-austerity parties and politicians like Jeremy Corbyn have benefited from public anger and risen to prominence on left-wing socialist programmes. We offer Corbyn our support and agree with him that things have to change. But, as a reformist, Corbyn ultimately believes the fundamental problem with the world is bad ideas held by bad individuals, rather than the total impasse of the capitalist system. And unlike in the past, capitalism is incapable of providing reforms to quell unrest, as the Greek Prime Minister Alexei Tsipras discovered in 2015, when, despite an overwhelming public vote against EU austerity measures, he chose to accept austerity rather than fight capitalism. And the Greek people have suffered the consequences of this decision in terms of massive unemployment and vicious cuts to essential public services. This is not to suggest the Greek people were wrong to back Syriza, nor that Tsipras intended to betray them. It demonstrates that if the working class leadership are unwilling to break with capitalism by expropriating the wealth of the rich, even well-intentioned reformists will be forced to obey the demands of the system. This is why only revolution can guarantee real, lasting reform. Lenin described capitalism as horror without end, and only revolution can end this horror, with ordinary working people throwing off their chains and running society democratically for the good of all. The choice is between socialism and barbarism. We choose socialism.